Months have passed, and Machio has already built several pens for the cows and chickens that Flora and Tia brought back then. The milk produced by Machio's wives. The milk produced by the cows is abundant and sufficient for their daily needs. Also, chickens have laid many eggs. Shortly after, Zabathan rang the village bell again because something was in the forest. Maria immediately reports to Machio that an emissary from the Demon King has suddenly come to the Teju village area. Then Machio, Rue, and Tia immediately meet that person, who turns out to be Bizzle, the advisor to the Demon King. Bizzle wants to meet the leader of this territory. In Machio's mind, this was his first job as village chief, so he must do his best and choose a good decision or negotiation. Machio starts approaching Bizzle and introduces himself as the village chief in Teju village. Then Bizzle said that the Demon King wanted to get acquainted with Machio. The Demon King brought this potion gift as a token of introduction between the Demon Kingdom and Teju village. Machio is grateful for the gifts that Bizzle and the Demon King gave him. Rue looks really happy as she holds the potion from the Demon King. Then Bizzle said that the Demon King wanted to negotiate with Machio about Teju village. After hearing that, Machio thought that maybe this Demon King's negotiating intent was for the payment of the tax rate. This was the Demon King's territory, so it was only natural that Machio would have to pay taxes to him. Then Machio tells Bizzle that Teju village will give 10% of the harvest if the Demon King allows them to live in his territory. But the Demon King has to order his servants to come here every winter so they can take Teju village's crops. In Machio's mind, he didn't want the Demon King to become his enemy, and that's why he dared to share his farm's crops. Then Bizzle was shocked after hearing the negotiation from Machio.
よろしいのですか?
After that, Machio signed the document that Bizzle had brought. The stipulation was that Teju village only gave vegetables and fruit to the Demon King. Teju village does not hand over milk, wine, eggs, honey, or anything processed or animal derived. The Demon Kingdom has to buy all of that if the Demon King wants it, which already falls into the trade category. Then Machio gave many apples in return for the gift the Demon King gave. After Bizzle left there, Tia, Ria, Anne, and Rue were amazed at Machio's intelligence. The tax rate was usually 50 or 60%, but Machio negotiated a 10% rate with the Demon Lord. Thus, Teju village came under the protection of the Demon King's military army at a low tax rate. Moreover, Machio ordered them to collect Teju village's harvest in winter once a year, so the villagers of Teju don't need to bother handing the crops to the Demon Kingdom. After all, they didn't know that the development of Machio's farm was unbelievably fast. Rue was also very happy that the Demon King gave this precious potion as an introductory gift. After hearing that, Machio didn't understand what his wives meant. Machio only negotiated according to what was on his mind, and didn't know any standards in this world.
さすがです村長。
そうか?
That night, Bizzle reported Machio's negotiations to the Demon King Randon and Heavenly King Blatt. Of course, they were surprised that Machio acknowledged the Demon King's existence and military forces. Even though the Demon King didn't suffer any losses, what was hard to believe was the decision made by Machio. Teju village has extraordinary power because it can defeat the strongest rare wyvern. Even Bizzle was very scared and trembling when he was there. They consist of various races, especially the vampire princess, and the angel race have great destructive power. Then there are the inferno or demonic wolves, which are numerous and countless. There are high elf races who also have extraordinary war strategy powers and are versatile in many things. Finally, the special assassin angel knight is hard to beat. But Teju village wanted to submit and obey the Demon King with just negotiations like this. Bizzle will not be able to refuse Teju village's offer to become part of the Demon Kingdom. If Bizzle refused the previous negotiation, of course, Teju village would become an enemy to the Demon King. Even the Teju village could annihilate this kingdom in an instant with the mad army they had. Luckily, Machio chose the path of peace, and Teju village's existence would not threaten the Demon Kingdom. Then Blatt opened the gifts given by Teju village. Initially, Randon, the Demon King, did not allow Blatt to eat the apple. But Blatt still wants to try it as a test. Is there any poison? When Blatt ate the apple, he was very happy because there was no poison in it, and it tasted very delicious. Then Bizzle realized that the cloth made for this gift wrap was the sewing of the greater demon spider, the highest level of demon spider and having defeated a Demon King before Randon back then. Of course, Blatt was surprised because Teju village really had the strongest military force. Randon was speechless because he was frightened by the power of Teju village. No wonder Machio's wives fainted when Machio introduced Zabathan to them. Turns out Zabathan is a greater demon spider. Several days later, Dorame and Gucci came to Teju village. This time Daga and Anne accompanied Machio to welcome the guests. After they became acquainted, Gucci presented the gift of friendly relations between Teju village and the Dorame kingdom. Gucci says that the Dorame kingdom is south of Teju village. Machio is amazed by the item given by Dorame because it is a very luxurious sword. Then Machio wanted to welcome them to the village. But Machio wonders, why has Dorame always looked down since earlier? Can Dorame change his form? Then Gucci immediately ordered Dorame to change into human form and reintroduce himself to Machio. In Machio's mind, he saw Dorame, who was very nervous and only memorized one introductory sentence. Maybe Gucci had told him to memorize it. Then Dorame visited Teju village until night. He really enjoyed the food and drink there. Even Dorame is addicted to drinking wine made in Teju village. He did not want to go home and wanted to continue to live in this village. But Gucci said that the people of Dorame would be worried if Dorame wasn't there. So Dorame has to go home now. After all, Teju village had also given a gift back to Dorame containing various kinds of food. So Dorame can eat the food in the castle later. It's not good to visit other people's places until a night like this. After hearing that, Dorame obeyed Gucci and immediately returned to his castle. The next day, Machio called Ria and Rita to discuss welcoming and serving village guests. Machio thought that there should be an inn to accommodate the guests. He also didn't want his main house and his wives to be their welcoming place. Ria and Rita suggested that lodging should be rather large to accommodate more than 30 people, because many other villagers may have to travel long distances to get to this village, so they need a good and comfortable place to rest. Previously, Teju village guests could easily access the road here because they had the ability. After the discussion was over, Machio and his wives immediately built an inn with an open hall to welcome the guests later. After the inn was built, Machio wanted to discuss the procedures and systems for welcoming guests with all the residents and his wives. Machio suggests Kudal, Maria, and Coron lead the guests to the village. Machio doesn't want what happened to Bizzle to happen again. Then the wooden bell that Zabathan usually wears is a very fatal thing. When Zabathan rings the bell, it means there is danger in the forest, and the lizardmen immediately bring weapons like this. Because of that, Zabathan was given an iron bell so that the residents could distinguish the sound. Wooden bells for danger alerts, and iron bells for guests coming to Teju village. After that, Machio plans to welcome the guests with Rue and Tia. But Anne is angry because Machio is too easygoing to respond to other people. Anne suggested a few people welcome the guests. It was likely that criminals were posing as guests, and Machio couldn't have noticed that alone. Daga also suggested multiplying the high elf race, some Kijin race maids, and lizardmen. Then Flora wants to be part of welcoming the guests, but Machio apologized to Flora because he wanted Flora to keep an eye on the guests staying in Teju village later. The vampire race has the ability not to sleep for several days, but Machio still warned Flora not to force herself to stay up all night. A few days later, Zabathan rang the iron bell, and Machio and the others greeted the arriving guests. They were the Beastmen race from Howling Village in the eastern mountain region. Garf, the village's representative, wants to have a close relationship with Teju village. Then Rue tells Machio to be quiet, and Rue will take care of these guests. Rue asks them sadistically, "Are all your friends here? We will take you to the village inn." If there were only these 5 people, Teju village would consider some beastmen in the forest enemies. Garf apologized that some of his friends might get lost in this forest. Rue says that Garf and the others should behave in Teju village. If not, they will always be watched by someone mysterious here. After hearing that, Garf and the others promise not to repeat their previous treatment. Then the welcoming ceremony began. But Machio feels strange about the behavior of his wives. They locked Gaft and the others in the room. Tia, Rue, and Anne said they didn't bring anything as a token of introduction like the previous guests. It was the normal rule for guests wishing to forge close ties between territories. They even hid the Beastmen army in the forest. This is very suspicious. Kudal, Maria, and Coron actually saw this army of Beastmen. But according to them, the Beastmen didn't threaten the village, so they didn't catch the Beastmen. In the afternoon, Machio saw the maids preparing too simple food for the beastmen. Pan was annoyed and answered as Tia and Ru said. This is the difference in courtesy for people who want to establish relations between regions. So Machio just needs to sit back and watch his wives deal with this problem. Then Machio wants Anne to keep serving wine to the beastmen.
ワインは出さないつもりなのか？そうか。
Machio feels guilty for preparing such an overly simple meal, but Tia and Ru say that Machio should get rid of such feelings of consideration. There was still the possibility that these beastmen were enemies. Even Anne is still annoyed with Machio because he serves them wine. Then Machio quickly chatted with Garf about Howling Village. Garf said that the residents in his village were workers in the mining and often hunted in the forests. They owned a large number of tools in the village and often traded in these tools. But sadly, the Howling Village was having a hard time trading with the human villages. There were several problems there that caused Howling Village trade to not go smoothly. Because of that, they are looking for other places or villages so that the village trade can run again. Garf and the others were able to find out about Teju village thanks to the Demon King's announcement. Garf and the others were overjoyed at tasting this sumptuous and delicious food. If they stayed hidden in the forest now, they would definitely regret it. Then Tia deliberately approached one of the beastmen and asked, "Why are some of you hiding in the forest?" They replied that it was for their protection so they could know the situation of the new place. If there was trouble or war, the hidden beastmen could immediately report to the Howling Village chief. Upon hearing that, Machio and his wives were relieved that the beastmen were not enemies of Teju village.
しっかりと情報収集をしてくれている。頼もしい。
Several days later, Garf discussed the Howling Village trade negotiations with Machio. Howling Village wanted to trade with physical goods because they didn't have any currency as a means of transaction. They produce a wide range of quality tableware, home furnishings, metals, and paints. Of course, these are all processed products from their mining. Then Howling Village wanted Teju Village to sell vegetables and food. But Garf wanted Teju Village to come to Howling Village because the journey to this forest was very far. In fact, they needed to pass through several mountains to get to Teju Village. Teju Village has the fastest navigation since they live in this forest. Someday Garf wants to make a market for these two villages, Howling Village and Teju Village. In Machio's mind, Teju Village also didn't have currency for transactions. Maybe later, he should think of a way to create currency to make transactions easier. Then Teju Village has many inferno wolves or demon wolves, so Machio thought of asking them to help deliver the harvest to Howling Village. Because of that, Machio agreed with Garf's suggestion. Machio also really wanted glass cutlery, and so did his wives. After that, Garf and his friends wanted to return to Howling Village, but they apologized to Machio first. Howling Village didn't offer anything as a token of introduction or establishing close ties between the regions. It was because the Howling Village had long been in poverty. Their trade was in trouble, so Howling Village didn't have the habit of giving away goods or anything every time they visited a new territory. After hearing that, Machio and his wives finally understood Howling Village's situation. Machio didn't mind because Howling Village already had good intentions of visiting Teju Village. Upon hearing that, Garf and the others gave their thanks and immediately returned to Howling Village.
そう言ってもらえると気が楽になるな。
いや、どうか気にしないでくれ。
次回は必ず。
A few weeks later, Tia and the lizardmen decided to deliver Teju Village's harvest to Howling Village. At first, Machio wants to come with them, but Tia and Ru suggest that Machio stays in the village. It wouldn't be good if the first trade deal brought in an important person like Machio. That's how merchants work in this world. So, as Machio's wife, Tia will represent Teju Village in transactions with Howling Village. Actually, the journey to Howling Village took 10 days, but it turns out that Dorame offered to help Teju Village trade in exchange for a barrel of wine. Dorame has been visiting Teju Village recently and always brings luxury goods. Of course, Machio's wives were happy to see all the items Dorame gave them, while Dorame just wants to have fun drinking wine until he gets drunk and goes home. Then Dorame and the others said goodbye to Machio and headed to Howling Village. But when they got there, the Howling villagers were very surprised because they thought the dragon wanted to attack the village. Then Tia screamed to greet them so they wouldn't be scared. When Tia wanted to hand over all the harvest that Teju Village brought with her, the Howling villagers hesitated because it was the first time they had seen the new food. Then Tia convinced them to try the fruits from Teju Village. After they ate it, Tia finally managed to make a transaction with the Howling Village. But when Tia returns to Teju Village,
報酬のワインまで売れてしまった。
Dorame is disappointed that there is no wine barrel left from their transaction. Because of this, Machio invites Dorame to join a party in Teju village. Dorame can drink as much wine as he wants tonight. After hearing that, Dorame was very happy because Machio was so kind to him. Then Tia reported that the chief of Howling Village wanted to order some of his residents to live and work in Teju village, possibly about more than 20 young girls to make trading transactions easier. Machio is happy to have extra workers in Teju village, but he thinks that in Teju village, most of the population are women. In fact, they often ask for rations of night activities in bed with Machio. Machio is very exhausted from too many girls he serves. Because of that, Machio wants Tia to convey to the Howling Village chief that Teju village needs at least 2 more young men. A few days later, Tia brought some people from Howling Village. Their representative is Sena, a shy and obedient girl.
私はセナと言います。この度は移住を受け入れてもらい。
Sena hoped that Teju village would not throw her away. In exchange, the girls of Howling Village are ready to do whatever Machio wants. Upon hearing that, Machio said Sena and the others were worrying too much about it. Machio knew they were nervous because it was their first time visiting Teju village. So Machio wanted them to rest at the inn first. If they are used to living in the Teju village, they can ask for a house or anything from Machio and his wives. After hearing that, Sena and her friends were pleased that Teju village accepted them to live here. Then Sena kept her promise that Howling Village should bring young men to Teju village. But it turns out the reality is like this. It's indeed young men, but Machio intends to add teenagers, not children like that. Even so, the safety of Machio's Iron Bird is still guaranteed in the future. He had to be strong to wait for these children to reach their teenage years, while the other High Elves can't wait to taste these boys, so that the High Elves can give birth to many children. But they are not Shota lovers, so they have to wait many more years to enjoy lust's extraordinary satisfaction. Then Machio started walking around Teju village so Sena and the others could recognize the villagers, including Machio's wives. Machio said that if they needed anything, they could ask Ramurias and the other maids for help. Machio understands their feelings. They thought would be treated badly in Teju village, just like in Howling Village. But Machio kept calming them so they could enjoy the vibes in this village. For days Sena and her friends have been living in the village and are starting to adapt there. They also really enjoy the many facilities provided in Teju village. But there remains a major problem.
よく気絶します。
Any new residents who come to Teju village will always faint when they see the Zabathan and Kuroyuki families. Well, it's natural to faint. Machio's pet is beyond human reason. Machio, his wives, and Sena also take care of the 3 boys who often play there. Sena also usually uses magic when guarding them. Of course, Machio was surprised that every race could actually use magic. The High Elves, Angels, Vampires, Beastmen, Machio's pets, and even slimes can use magic. After seeing that, Machio felt useless because he was the only one who couldn't use magic. The all-purpose farming tool does not belong to the category of magic, and is only a gift from gods and goddesses. But Sena encouraged Machio because he should be able to use magic if he practiced hard. The 3 boys will also train hard so they can use magic like the others. Well, even so, Machio is still grateful for living happily in this world. One day, when Machio was harvesting in the fields as usual, suddenly there was a loud bang from the forest. Maria reports to Machio that the grappler bear and bloody viper are fighting north. After hearing that, Machio was confused because a bear has a large body against a small snake. Maria said that Teju village couldn't attack them recklessly, but if they were allowed to fight, Teju village would also be affected. Then Machio asked Maria like this.
そいつらって食べられるかな?
Maria immediately took Machio north. Machio asked like that earlier because he was curious about the taste of the bear meat. He had heard rumors that many hunters didn't want to eat bears. After arriving at where Grappler and Bloody are fighting, Machio is surprised because the viper turns out to have a large size. Maria says that Teju village needs troops to fight them, but Machio didn't need it and immediately killed them. Well, if Machio's strength is like this, he wouldn't need magic power. After Grappler and Bloody were taken to Teju village, Anne asked Machio how to cook it. Then Machio immediately showed Anne and the maids how to cook these monsters. Machio also uses wine as the main ingredient for this dish. Of course, Machio's wives, Anne, Remurias, and the others were unwilling to have this precious wine used in cooking. But Machio says that there is this type of cooking, and it tastes delicious too. When the food was served, Machio and the others tried the food. Of course, everyone is happy because Machio's cooking is always delicious. But Machio felt there was a missing spice in this world, vinegar. Then Machio came to Flora's laboratory. Machio asked Flora for some medicine, but not strong medicine. After Machio explained the contents of the vinegar to Flora, Flora said that she had the medicine Machio was referring to. After Flora gave the medicine, Machio asked about the miso soup Flora was researching. Then Flora apologized to Machio because the miso soup research was hampered. Flora already knew how to make it from Machio's recipe. But sadly, she always fails at making miso soup. Even her research exploded, and she had to renovate some of the damaged laboratory parts. By the way, Flora has been living here since she brought the cows and maids to Teju village.
爆薬は控えめにしますね。
抜きで頼む。まあ、もう一度挑戦してみよう。
Then Machio decided to make miso soup and complement the food taste with Flora in her laboratory. Machio wants to make mayonnaise first. He beat the eggs, then added the salt, vinegar, or the medicine Flora had previously mixed with the apples, last, a bit of oil. After the mayonnaise is ready, any fried food can be enjoyed more with the addition of this mayonnaise. Then they started making miso soup together.
このままでもいけますわよ。
体壊すからやめときなさい。なんとかする。なくていいぞ。塩と麹を加えて何ヶ月かかかる。気長に待とう。
そんなに。
Then Ru calls Machio because other guests is coming to Teju village. They were from the elder dwarf race and were led by Donovan. They came there because they heard that Teju village has very delicious wine. They want to try it. At first, Machio allows the Teju village wine to be given to them for free. But Ru, Tia, Anne, and Flora are unwilling to have their precious wine given away for free. Donovan said that the dwarves didn't have enough money to pay for their wine. But Donovan offers them a technology to make wine. The harvest in Teju village was very good, and it could become the main ingredient for making the special wine of the dwarves.
飲んでみたくないか?
Then Donovan and his friends started making wine. After the wine was made, Machio tried it, and he felt that the alcohol content in the wine was really high. Because of that, the dwarves continued to make more of this wine for the Teju village. At night, they had a party to welcome Sena, her friends, and the arrival of the dwarves. Donovan and his friends will live in this village, and their job is to make wine from Teju village's harvest.
村長、ありがとうよ。わしらを快く受け入れて、ここで一つ俺の秘技をお見せしようではないか。つまみにぴったりだ。
マヨネーズ気に入ったわ。このお酒、口の中で香りがパーッと広がりますね。
Then Machio was grateful because adult men were living in this village. Machio also whispered to Donovan about the lust of the girls in this village, especially the high elf race. Machio hoped that Donovan could provide them with lustful pleasures in bed too. However, Donovan turned down an offer from Machio. Donovan admits that the girls in this village are very beautiful, but Donovan is too old to keep up with them. Even Donovan wished there was a woman his age. Machio is surprised because the culture in this world is different from Machio's previous world.
文化の壁は厚い。
A few weeks later, the village of Teju is visited by a dragon, and Sabathan immediately rings the wooden bell. Of course, Machio was surprised to see such a powerful dragon flying over the village. He immediately put on the divine spear. But when the dragon wanted to spew fire on Machio's village, Dorame came and hit the dragon. Suddenly, another white dragon came there. Machio immediately throws his spear because the white dragon wants to kill him.
こちらに向かって一直線。友好的とは思えない。お待ちください。あの方は敵ではありません。
Turns out they are Dorame's family. The white dragon is Dorame's wife, Grafalin, and their daughter, Lastismun. Graffa and Lasti suddenly attack Teju village because Dorame often goes there. Dorame always took things out of the closet, sneaked out at night, then came home in the morning. Because of that, Graffa and Lasti thought Dorame was having an affair with other women. Then Dorame nervously reasoned that he was carrying out friendly relations with Teju village. Because of that, he often came here. Of course, Lasti and Graffa grew suspicious of Dorame. Even Graffa was furious because Dorame didn't explain honestly. Dorame screams that he can't be cheating on her because he already has Grapha. Machio understands this family fights. He and the elves have even built a special villa for Dorame in Teju village. It wasn't a good trip home when it was late at night, so Machio decided to build the villa. Then Machio apologized to them for attacking earlier. Dorame's family also apologizes for coming to Teju village suddenly. Grapha and Lasti regretted that they had intended to burn and kill Machio before. Then Machio returned to work to help his wives in the fields. Dorame says that the village of Teju has extraordinary power. Grapha was in awe of this village, because a man could trouble the dragon race. It's just one person. What if the entire Teju village army? It will definitely be much stronger than the dragon race. Lasti also realized the power possessed by Machio, and fortunately, Grapha managed to dodge it in time. Grapha said that she was saved by Zabathan with his net. If there was no Zabathan, Grapha would be dead by now. Zabathan is a longtime comrade of Grapha. Then Grapha asked Lasti for help to stay in Teju village. Grapha didn't want to let go of the dragon race's relationship with Machio as the head of the village here. This is an important mission for Lasti for a reason.
せめて我々ドラゴン族に向かわないように努めるのです。
なんだ急に。
あなたは黙っててください。
はい。
Then Lasti immediately entered Teju village and met Machio again. After she told Machio her intention, Machio allowed Lasti to stay in Teju village. Lasti also wants to work and help the villagers, so Machio gives her some work.
ドラゴン族は何事も規格外なのか。
ドラゴン族さんですか？
しかし。
早速頑張ります。
Unfortunately, Lasti hasn't been able to work for days like other residents. Machio is discussing this with Tia. Machio's pets, cows, and chickens are also frightened by Lasti's power. This resulted in Teju village being temporarily unable to produce milk and eggs. Tia explained that the dragon race has extraordinary strength. Not only strength, but the knowledge of the dragon race is also very broad. After listening to Tia's explanation, Machio finds Lasti a suitable job. She will work as a guide or do anything about interacting directly with guests. For example, Bizzle. He wanted to buy food from Teju village, and Lasti guided him to make the transaction go smoothly. Of course, Bizzle was surprised because he had just seen a dragon race in Teju village.
柿やスイカなんかも。
いやこちらも。
Then Bizzle reported this to Randon and Blatt. Teju village strength is increasing day by day. Initially, Blatt wanted to send a spy there, but Randon forbade him because this action would surely be suspected by the people in Teju village. Because of that, Bizzle ordered his daughter Frau Rem to directly supervise Teju village. Bizzle entrusted this task to Frau, and she also had to investigate the activities there. Then Frau will confidently fulfill the task that her father wants her to do. Frau has extraordinary magic power, so Bizzle doesn't need to worry about Frau.
一見なんてことのない村のようですが。
Lasti immediately welcomed Frau and took her on a tour of Teju village. She had already heard from Bizzle that Frau wanted to live in this village. After Frau became acquainted with Lasti, she didn't expect a dangerous and famous dragon with ferocity to live in Teju village. Even Frau was surprised because Lasti, the powerful dragon, proudly told of the many fields and facilities. After Lasti took Frau around the village, Maria called Lasti because people from the Howling village were coming to Teju village. After Lasti apologized and said goodbye to Frau, Frau still went around to monitor and investigate every activity of the residents there. Even Frau also wants to analyze the strength of the troops Teju village has.
ハイエルフまでいるのですか。それにあの3人も確か皆殺し天使とか言われていたような殲滅天使ティア。どうしてルールーシーと同じ村に？貴族に追われて消息を絶ったかと思えばこんなところにいたなんて。獣人に鬼人族、ドワーフまで。イーフェルドウルフとデーモンスパイダーがしかも群れをなして。
After seeing all the Teju villagers, Frau felt that her magic power couldn't have any effect here. Frau was too proud of her own strength before, and that pride was shattered when she saw the strength of Teju village. Then Frau sat on the edge of the village while looking at the arrangement of the Teju village's strongest troop that she had made. Frau wanted to know who the leader of this troop was and how strong his skills were. Suddenly, Machio comes there and greets Frau. Of course, Frau was confused. Why was there a human here? Then Frau immediately said harshly to Machio and returned to Teju village. After all, humans were the weakest race, so Frau didn't feel threatened by Machio's existence. Then when Frau asked Lasti about the chief, Frau was surprised because the man she had met before was the chief of Teju village. She also felt guilty for having spoken harshly to Machio earlier. Lasti says that Machio can easily beat Graffa, so he's not a weak human like Frau thinks. Several days have passed, and Frau is used to working and living in Teju village, but she still can't be normal with Machio. Frau is always nervous because she remembers her mistakes as well as the power that Machio has. The slimes that Tia brought back at that time had increased in number. They reproduce rapidly and come in many different colors or species. But the main problem arose when one of these slimes started roaming the village. Of course, Machio's wives were furious with the slime for consuming a barrel of wine. Even Dorium, Lasti's father, could not finish a barrel of wine alone. Then Machio's wives want to punish the slime, but Machio calms them down because he feels sorry for this slime. Frau also said that slimes would not be able to self-reflect, so they would be wasting any punishment on it. Because of that, the slime became a new friend there and often appeared whenever Machio, the girls, and his wives ate together. Not only that, it also appears every time at banquets, parties, or any event in Teju village. I'll call it the Red. Machio didn't mind if the Red behaved this way, as long as the slime seemed to be only one. If all the slimes in Teju village were like the Red, Machio, his wives, and the other girls would have a headache dealing with those slimes. By the way, the Red can make sounds like this, similar to Sui from the anime Campfire Cooking. Autumn is coming again, and Machio is resting after harvesting some of his fields. Then Machio, his wives, and the other girls ate together with a variety of food menus. They enjoyed the delicious food made by Machio, and the maids, especially Sena. She had never tasted such delicious food in the Howling Village. Then Machio wanted to make a seafood menu, because it would be more delicious than soup or something. Machio's wives and the other girls were silent for a moment, then they were surprised. This was the first time they had heard of this seafood menu. They wonder what seafood Machio can call more delicious. Machio explained that seafood consists of crabs, clams, sea fish, seaweed, etc. The seasoning is also easy, and Machio can make it. What's more, there was the miso broth that he and Flora had made back then. Machio's wives and other girls are surprised that the monsters called Machio can be eaten. Because of that, all the girls are excited to find the monster that Machio mentioned. Frau says there is a town called Shishato and a harbor near the Demon Kingdom. There is a seafood trade there, so Lasti and Frau will be heading there to ask for some monsters that Machio wants. They will also be accompanied by several lizard men. Flora would prepare miso soup, while the elves and maids would help Machio prepare the necessary things. Machio really didn't expect all the girls here to be so passionate when it came to food. By the way, to my surprise, they eat a lot of food, but their bodies are still slim and plump. A few days later, Frau and Lasti brought the leader of a marine trading company named Michael Goraun. He is an acquaintance of Frau and is closely related to the Demon Kingdom. Then Michael gave various kinds of fish to Teju village. But the fishermen always throw away the seaweed whenever they catch a lot of fish. So Michael will order the fishermen to immediately collect them according to Machio's wish. He also wanted to establish trade relations with Teju village. Michael was very interested in all the fields there. This can be a good business in the future. Then Rue and Tia handled the negotiations from Michael. Michael provided approval documents and products produced by his company. Michael hopes that Teju village can consider this business with good profits in the future. Then Michael will return to Shishato town and wants to try wine in Teju village next time.
まあ、大きなドラゴン相手じゃびっくりもするか。
特に騙すような意図もなさそうでしたね。
ああ。
でも、こっちは損どころか高めで引き取ってもらえたし。
交渉変わってくれて助かったよ。
胎児の村。怖かった。
The story returned a few days ago when Lasti, Frau, and the lizard men arrived at Shishato town. Michael receives a report from his subordinate that a guest insists on meeting him. Even the guest knows Michael's full name. At first, Michael didn't care because he was busy, but he felt that there was something valuable about the guest. Because of that, Michael immediately welcomed their arrival. Of course, Michael's intuition was correct. He meets his acquaintance, Frau. Frau also introduces Lasty and gives Michael the crops. Instead, Frau wants to order some fish or anything from Michael. Michael is surprised that Frau can be friends with Lasty, the crazy and ferocious dragon. There were even some lizardmen who were famous for their physical strength. Michael is getting scared because it's a dangerous condition if he refuses their arrival. When Michael saw the harvest they had brought, Michael's face suddenly brightened up. He could profit greatly if he teamed up with them. This is a trending fruit among the citizens of the capital. He could even sell all of these crops at high prices there. Because of that, Michael immediately gave all the best marine animals and had to serve them wholeheartedly. Michael even offered to deliver seafood directly to their residence. Then Lasty and Frau said these crops came from Taeju village, located in the Forest of Death, so they will escort Michael there. Of course, Michael was very scared from the port city of Shashato to Taeju village.
シャシャートの商人さん。まあ、商人さんもご一緒に。
あの恐ろしい連中相手になんとか笑顔でやりきったぞ。
After Lasty finished dropping Michael off, she ate with the others. The seafood menu cooked by Machio is very delicious, and the food runs out quickly. Machio's wives and girls were very satisfied with this delicious food. A few days or weeks later, Zabathan suddenly rang the wooden bell again. This is a sign that there is a danger that will attack Taeju village. It turned out to be from the dragon race again, flying as if to challenge Machio. Machio is confused by the dragon's behavior. She looked like she underestimated Machio, but Machio couldn't carelessly throw his golden spear. Actually, Maria and the others had already fought the dragon, but sadly, they lost, and this dragon flew over the Taeju village. Then suddenly, the dragon deliberately sprayed fire in an area that was a bit far from Taeju village. Of course, Machio immediately threw his spear, but the dragon dodged it. Then Machio threw his spear again and was slightly hit by the dragon's wing. When Machio and Kuroyuki's family approached the dragon,
やられちゃった。降参なんちゃって。
it turns out that a girl named Hakurin deliberately came there to see Machio. She actually had no reason to set fire to the forest or anything. Hakurin just wanted to play around. Shortly after, Dorame came to scold his older sister. Machio is surprised that Dorame has an older sister like this. Then Machio said that Hakurin shouldn't have to challenge him like before. But Hakurin said she doesn't want to visit normally. She hears rumors that Machio is the strongest man. Then Hakurin scolded Dorame because he wanted to marry Lasty to Machio. Hakurin was jealous. She didn't have a husband even though she was over 900 years old. Meanwhile, Lasty already has a strong husband like Machio. Hakurin doesn't care about Dorame and will stay here to see Machio's activities. After all, playing with Machio seems like fun too. After hearing that, Machio allowed Hakurin to playing with him, but she shouldn't interfere with other people's activities. Machio will also punish Hakurin for burning this forest before.
当然しなきゃダメだよな。
Wait, I still don't understand the meaning of the word playing with Machio. It's really ambiguous if you or I think the other things, especially if you read this light novel. I'm sure you know who gave birth to many children. Then Machio and the maid started to provide lots of food for Hakurin and Dorame. Hakurin was completely surprised by the taste of delicious food in Taeju village. Then Lasty apologized to Machio because Hakurin bothered Machio a lot today.
おばさまが迷惑を。ラスティちゃん。
ラスティが謝ることはないさ。
Hakurin heard that there was an interesting game in Taeju village, Mahjong. She wanted to try playing it with Machio and the others. Hakurin didn't want to lose against Machio. Then Dorame and Lasty will join this game. Then Hakurin asked about the punishment for whoever had the lowest Mahjong points. Machio said that the punishment was usually naked. Because of that, Hakurin and the others agreed to be naked if one of them had low points. Suddenly, the atmosphere from night to midnight was really tense. Machio didn't expect that he would fight against this dragon race. Even he had forgotten what Tia had said earlier, that the dragon race had extraordinary intelligence. Machio regretted that he had accepted Hakurin's challenge. He even regretted agreeing to a naked punishment if it ended like this.
おかしいでしょ。なんで俺だけこんな負けてんの？もう後がないんだけど。
Machio didn't expect Hakurin, who was still a rookie, to be so confident in this game. Even Machio thought they were using magic to find out the letters on each square pawn on the table. But Machio didn't notice any suspicious movements from them. In fact, they play very casually. Machio also couldn't believe he could see Hakuren's body with open clothes like this from closer. By the way, Machio prefers adult women. Because of that, Ru is often exhausted when in her adult form. Not only Ru but Tia, Ria, and others. Back to the story. In the end, Machio lost because he had the lowest points. The only thing he had to take off was his underwear. Ru, Tia, Ria, and the High Elves have seen Machio's iron bird every night. But this was the first time Hakuren to see such a special item in man. Then here's the reaction.
力だけじゃありませんよ。知恵も知識もすごいんですから。
ナメさん
I envy Machio. All the girls there are also lucky to have him, whose stamina is unlimited. Days and weeks later, Machio tries to give Hakuren a job. She is lazy, complains a lot, and always wants to eat and relax. Even so, she can learn anything quickly, including cooking. But when Machio makes her work in the field in dragon mode, Hakuren couldn't stand the job and wants to rest continuously. Because of that, Machio asks for her help to become a teacher for the children of Howling Village. That way, the kids don't play daily, and Seina can work peacefully. Machio was amazed that Hakuren could teach children so easily. A few days or weeks later, several Lamia races came to Teju village. The Lamia race were humans who were half snakes or lizards. They live in caves or dungeons. All of the Lamia race were women, and they always had children with human race men. Back to the story. They brought some goods to establish a close relationship with Teju village. Some time ago, Kurayuki and Zabathan's families were exploring the dungeon, so they feel that they have made mistakes in Teju village. Then Machio and Frau decide to work together with the Lamia race. They would trade using treasures in the dungeon and exchange them for food from Teju village. The Lamia race was very happy because they got something special from Teju village, so they are willing to do anything if Machio needs them. Of course, Machio felt embarrassed that they said such ambiguous things, same as Seina. Then Machio put a cloth on them to cover their boobs. Many children in Teju village have not been allowed to see this. Days and weeks passed. Machio and his wives were thrilled to be working with a few more new people. Teju village has developed thanks to the hard work of the residents rapidly. Machio will also think of other things with his wives. So many other merchants or neighbors visit Teju village. In the Demon Kingdom, Blatt and Bizzle have heard rumors that Hakuren, the beautiful and scary ancient dragon, has lived in Teju village. They are getting stronger, and this is really beyond expectations. Even Randon had resigned and been replaced by Gargard. On the other hand, Gargard's daughter, Yuri, receives a report from her subordinates that Teju village has gathered many dangerous members. They were sure that Teju village had a hidden purpose behind all this. Frau has likely been taken hostage by Teju village because there is no news of her. Because of that, Yuri must act immediately and gather troops to save Frau.
あの村を攻め落とし、フラウレムを取り返すのです。
Bizzle had heard about Princess Yuri's plan to form an army against Teju village. The war will take place tomorrow with 300 soldiers. Because of this, Bizzle visited Frau's workplace to explain it. Bizzle also apologized to Frau for bothering her tonight. Frau is taking care of a lot of bookkeeping to maintain Teju village's economy. Bizzle said that Yuri became like this because she was provoked by the girl group who always followed her. Bizzle has asked the Demon King Gargard for help to stop this war. But sadly, Gargard spoiled his beloved daughter too much, so Gargard kept giving her freedom. Of course, Frau was surprised that Yuri would be commanding the Demon King's army. Frau really recognized the girl group that had provoked Yuri. They are known as stupid girls who only give false or unclear information. I'm sorry that I'm not going to mention their names now. There are too many girls in this anime. I almost give up mentioning every girl in my script. Frau didn't expect they would make a mess again when Frau wasn't watching them. Frau had already reported many things about Teju village to the Demon Kingdom, but they don't seem to care about the report. This kind of situation cannot be resolved peacefully. If Frau and Bizzle face off against the Demon King's army head-on, Frau and Bizzle will be considered siding with Teju village. Teju village must not form an army to fight the Demon King's army. This was a pointless war. Frau also said the kingdom would be instantly destroyed if Teju village formed a war army. Then Frau had a good idea to frighten the Demon King's army and the stupid girls. Then Frau's idea turned out like this.
もうちょっと懲らしめておいた方がいいのかな。これでリンゴ10箱ももらっていいんでしょうか。もう
Frau's idea of making them surrender worked. After showing Teju Village's might, the Demon King's army and the stupid girls would not dare to die against the villagers. Then Frau takes the stupid girls and Yuri to the village to meet Machio. Of course, Machio didn't understand this situation. Why would other girls appear here? They were also frightened and cried like this. Frau explains that they are immigrants from the Demon Kingdom and friends of Frau. From now on, stupid girls will live and work in this village under Frau's control. If they intend to disrupt Teju Village, Frau will punish them without mercy. Upon hearing that, the stupid girls' faces turned pale as they knew Frau's characteristics very well. Then Yuri introduced herself to Machio. Yuri reasoned that she only wanted to recognize Teju Village. Frau also reasoned that Yuri was worried about her. Yuri didn't have any intentions to mess with Teju Village, and Machio could be considered her existence didn't exist. In Yuri's mind, she was terrified because the Teju Village was too powerful. After hearing Frau's explanation, Machio orders her to take them around the village. Machio is going to the fields to work again as usual. Then Frau whispered that Teju villagers should not know about today's events. They had to keep it a secret and work diligently in this village so that their behavior could be forgiven. They are already being watched by someone in this village. Even many eyes saw their action. If you didn't understand my explanation, I'd remind you of a few things in the previous episodes. Flora's duty is to keep an eye on every visitor in the village. Meanwhile, Zabathan and Kuroyuki families were also scattered in the forest. Because of that, stupid girls shouldn't act recklessly in this village. One more thing, they are not allowed to reveal their identity. Frau also apologized to Princess Yuri. Frau wouldn't be able to call her princess in this village, so Frau only called Yuri's name. Yuri has no special treatment in this village and must live like an ordinary person. Then Yuri didn't mind Frau's suggestion. Even Yuri had not heard Frau call Yuri's name without the title of princess for a long time. Then they started walking around the village together. They were in awe of every farm in the village. Even the system in Teju village is also very natural. Yuri was also happy because she could play with the 3 boys there. When they were in the orchard, they saw a lot of apples. The stupid girls explained that this apple was a very expensive fruit in the capital's market. Even this fruit is only served at royal feasts. Ria, who was harvesting apples, was slightly surprised by their conversation. It sounded like royalty. Of course, Frau gave the stupid girls a code to stop the conversation. After that, they became acquainted with Lasti. Yuri was slightly surprised because the dragon race had a cute original form. Then the stupid girls thought of trying to escape from this village. A noble like them didn't deserve to live in a village like this. But when they tried to escape Teju village, many times they try, and many times they fail. Because of that, the stupid girls work hard at Frau's place. They don't want to be punished and beg forgiveness from Machio, who visited Frau's place today. Well, Machio doesn't know what they mean, but Machio is happy that the stupid girls are doing well. In this way, Frau's work is helped a little, and the stupid girls are given the nickname of civil servants in Teju village. A few days later, Yuri and Frau chatted briefly at the edge of the village. Yuri didn't expect a village built in the forest of death. There are even an infinite number of inferno wolves. Yuri regretted raising an army and starting a war. Teju village is very beautiful and peaceful. If this village is hit once, Teju village will strike back with overwhelming force. Anyone would not be able to escape if they faced Teju village. Yuri also just believed that a dragon was living here. Even though Frau had reported many things to the Demon Kingdom, Yuri was still worried about Frau. Frau suddenly disappeared and did not return to the Demon Kingdom. So Yuri believes that Frau is being held hostage in Teju village. Yuri is very worried about Frau, her childhood friend who she cares about. Then Frau said that she would explain it in more detail later. At night, the stupid girls were relaxing while enjoying delicious food and drink. They were exhausted from work, but they couldn't stop eating and drinking in the Teju village. Everything is too delicious. Machio and Frau were very happy because the stupid girls seemed used to living in this village. Not long after, Ru comes there to see the stupid girls. But Machio feels that something is different about Ru lately. Ru rarely wears her adult form. Ru says that her transformation magic has been getting worse lately, so she could only assume the form of a young girl around 10 to 15 years old. But Ru says that this incident will soon return to normal. Even so, Machio was still worried about the condition of his first wife. A few days later, Yuri wants to help with the work of Machio's wives and Teju villagers. Of course, the stupid girls were shocked since this was the work of commoners. A princess like Yuri was unfit for this job.
秘密なのでは？なんでもありません。勝負。
Several days have passed, and Yuri wants to return to the Demon Kingdom. She has done many activities in this village. Then Sena gave snacks to Yuri. Sena and the 3 boys were looking forward to Yuri's arrival next time. The 3 children really liked Yuri because she could play with them. Yuri promised to visit Teju village again. Then Yuri wondered, why don't the stupid girls go back to the Demon Kingdom? Then they answered while eating lots of snacks. They don't want to go home because they want to know Teju village more deeply. Well, they actually just want to eat and drink for free there.
せめて食べるのをやめてから言ってください。お世話になりました。
ああ、気をつけてな。
皆様、またいつか。
A few days later, Gargard called Bizzle because something had been strange about Yuri lately. Since returning from Teju village, she has become busier and her attitude has changed. Even Gargard could barely converse with her. Then Bizzle said Yuri might have felt what it meant to be an adult. Because of that, Yuri behaved like this. After all, parents also won't notice when their child grows up. Then Gargard thought that Yuri had changed because there was a man she loved. So Gargard would face the man head-on. Bizzle stopped Gargard's intentions. If that happened, Yuri would definitely be angry and annoyed with Gargard. Then they immediately went to the meeting as usual in the Demon Kingdom. Several days later, Machio, his wives, and the villagers harvested the fields in preparation for winter. But Machio was surprised because the harvest was more abundant than in previous years. Machio was happy to get this much harvest. But the main problem, they won't be able to spend all of this. There are too many stored crops in the warehouse. Even the warehouse was already overloaded to accommodate this crop. At first, Machio was confused about finding a solution. But Machio's wives and other girls suggested sharing the harvest with the neighbors. Hakurin can also give this crop to her parents, who are the strongest and oldest legendary dragons. Hakurin's father, the Dragon Emperor Dasu, and Hakurin's mother, the Hurricane Dragon Raymarin. Of course, everyone was surprised that they could have such a special connection. But Hakurin thought that nickname was too much. Actually, Hakurin's parents were normal. Well, that's according to Hakurin, contrary to the opinion of Machio and the others. Then Lasti started delivering Teju village crops to her parents in Shoshato town. Michael also had time to ask Lasti's help to kill sea monsters that have recently been disrupting sea trading activities. Michael gave a gift of monster meat that Machio wanted at that time, so Lasti wants Machio to cook the meat another time. Then Hakurin delivered Teju village's harvest to her parents. But when Hakurin went home, she brought some elf girls to Teju village. Of course, Machio was surprised that Hakurin could find them. Hakurin said she felt sorry for those living alone in the mountains and caves. Because of that, Hakurin invited them to live in this village. These elves experienced food problems in their previous residence, so they hoped that Machio would accept them living here. But if their presence disturbed Teju village, they would return to the northern mountains. At first, Machio thought they were the type of dark elf race like in the game, but they say they are still kind of ordinary elves and have always been called mountain elves. The representative of the mountain elf group is named Ya. Ria also said mountain elves can use magic and have survival skills in the forest. Then Machio apologized to them for being impolite to spontaneously guess other races. Machio has accepted them to live in the village. He, his wives, and other residents would build homes for them. Then mountain elves wanted to help with the work in Teju village according to their abilities. They are used to catching monsters in the forest, but sadly, none of their methods work to catch the monsters in this forest of death. They felt this forest was much different from where they had been before. Then Machio said Ya and the others didn't need to push themselves. They can start normal activities to adapt to this environment first. But Ya and the others didn't want to burden Machio and the other residents, so Ya still stubbornly wants to help Machio in any way. Then Ya saw Machio, who was making something out of clay. Machio explained that he was making a small stove for cooking, but Machio has not been able to find a suitable clay to make this tool. Then Ya is very excited to help Machio find quality clay. Ya and the others are very skilled in this field. Sometime later, Machio was very proud of them because they could make a lot of equipment.
もちろん
A few weeks later, Ria and the High Elves said that a dungeon had suddenly appeared near the mountains. Kuroyuki's family discovered the dungeon. Ria asks Machio's permission to take some villagers to investigate the dungeon's contents. Then Machio allowed them, but they didn't need to force themselves if there were dangerous situations later. A few days later, Machio completed a men's hot spring project in Teiju village. Machio has been running this project for a long time, and now he can only complete it thanks to the help of the villagers. If the hot springs were separated like this, Machio wouldn't have to bathe with the many girls, who always wanted to play in bed with him. After all, the men's hot spring is also useful for the men in this village. When Machio accompanies the three boys to bathe into the night, it turns out that the stupid girls are secretly peeking at Machio, and their actions are known by Frau. Of course, two lizard men immediately approach them because something was fishy. Frau threatens them with special punishment without mercy. If they are again caught behaving strangely and suspiciously, Frau will carry out the sentence. Frau warned them that nobility status would be useless in this village. Everyone will have the same status as an ordinary person. Then Machio visits Ru's room at night. Ru could return to her adult form, but her body still felt uncomfortable. Ru has been looked after for days by Tia and Sena. Tia didn't expect that the strongest vampire race like Ru could also be sick like this. Even though Ru was a clever girl for researching potions, she had never drunk the potions herself. Machio is very worried about the condition of his first wife, but Ru reassures Machio as she will soon recover. After all, Ru only felt nauseous and had a slight fever. She wanted to vomit but couldn't and felt something strange in her stomach. Then Sena asks Ru, "Do you really want to eat something food suddenly? Is it sweets or whatever?" Then Ru replied that what Sena said was true. Ru is also experiencing the condition, although sometimes her appetite suddenly disappears. After hearing that, Sena and Tia finally understand that Ru is actually pregnant, but Ru and Machio don't realize it. Why are Machio and Ru shocked? Seating every night by Machio works right. It seems this private room is very useful for the girls' peace. The next day, the dungeon investigation team returned to Teiju village. They also already know the news that Machio managed to impregnate Ru as his first wife. The High Elves were excited because they discovered something extraordinary in the dungeon. They want Machio to send troops to kill a monster called Bloody Viper. The High Elves wanted to eat Viper's flesh again like last time, so their request this time had to be carried out as quickly as possible. Machio was confused. Why were they so enthusiastic and blushing when they talked about Viper? Then Ya explained that Viper's meat is very delicious and can increase stamina to the maximum level. Other effects can also describe the fertility of a woman's uterus. Seed cultivation goes very smoothly if it eats the Viper's flesh. Machio was shocked to hear that, and Ya immediately understood what the High Elves' request meant. Of course, Ya also wants to do it with Machio. Then Machio calmed them down. Winter is coming soon, and Machio could discuss hot activities in bed with them one by one. Machio can't afford to satisfy all the girls' lust at once all night.
冬も近いし、狩りに行くかは村のみんなと話し合って決めよう。
しようとしてもできなかったのね。
そういうものか。ルーに子供ができたと分かった時は村中上を下への大騒ぎ。
Several months later, Ru is heavily pregnant, and Machio is increasingly concerned about Ru's body condition. But Ru reassured her beloved husband that she was fine. Machio always asks about Ru's body condition all the time. In fact, there is almost no discussion other than Ru's condition. Ru made sense of it because she understood that Machio was worried about her.
なんとかなるわ。
そっか。
Then Machio continued his activities as usual with his wives and other girls. There was one interesting thing that Anne and the other maids did. Every morning they always try to wake up earlier than Machio, but unfortunately, they always fail because Machio is too diligent in getting up early. Due to that, Machio decided not to leave the room after he woke up around 4 or 5 in the morning. Then Anne reported that the Red went into the wine cellar last night. The Red drank 1 barrel, but Machio wasn't worried, because 1 small barrel was deliberately unlocked so the Red could drink it. By the way, the maids were also used to cooking like Machio had taught them months or years ago. The dining room in the home of Machio and his wives has limited space, so every time they have breakfast, lunch, or dinner, they always divide it into 3 sessions. First for Machio and his wives, secondly for the maids, and thirdly for the other girls. Sometimes they also rotate these 3 sessions according to needs or situations. By the way, Hakuren Turin is the laziest girl in this village, and most of her activities are always spent sleeping. Meanwhile, the 3 angel race girls who served as village guards also had bad habits. They can't take care of themselves, can't do housework, can't cook, can't wash clothes, etc. Even so, they were strong, unlimited stamina, and were reliable guardian girls.
頑張って村の警護に当たってくれているので十分ありがたいのだが、
きっと火力が足りないんです
すまなかった。頼むから寝てくれ。
村長があんなこと言うからです。
まだ2割ぐらいの出来かな。フローラ？
Then Machio returned to work as usual. Sometimes he was also confused with the plant pests in this world. Many pests that he did not recognize. But thanks to the instructions always given by Zabathan's family, Machio can deal with these pests correctly. The fields that Machio has are also getting bigger. Machio, his wives, and the other girls were troubled because Teju village's fields were too large. After finishing work, they rest and have lunch together under the tree. Actually, the residents are confused by Machio's nature, which always allows lunch. Some girls are not used to having lunch because they think breakfast is enough. Some of the girls were even worried if we had lunch, would the food supply in the warehouse be sufficient for our daily needs? But Machio calmed them down and said that lunch was also needed to replenish their stamina so they could work optimally. Then several races report to Machio about the village situation, trade, etc. After that, Machio made a flower garden to make the village look more beautiful. Machio also made items according to the requests of the girls, his wives, and the children of the Howling village. These past few months, the villagers have also been training to strengthen themselves and gain experience in how to fight. Even though Machio didn't suggest this, the maids still suggested the practice. They were very excited to get the villagers to do it together. Well, the maids are excited because they just want to keep the weight off. If they were too fat from always eating well here, they wouldn't be able to wear cute maid outfits anymore. After all, this practice is also useful for their health and sexiness. Machio also sometimes joins them in training. However, he lacked the skills to use ordinary weapons. But when he used the golden spear from the all-purpose farming tool, the result was like this.
これはこれで使いどころに困る。
Then they had dinner together as usual. Even though the maids were used to cooking, they were still not used to creating new menus. So sometimes it tastes delicious, less salty, less sweet, even absurd. Then Machio received reports from several girls, including Frau. She gave a letter from Yuri to Machio. The letter contained a request to eat apples in Teju village, and she also wanted another dress made by Zabathan. Yuri really liked the dress made by Zabathan. Then Machio allowed it, and he was sure Zabathan would be happy that Yuri asked something like this.
まあ、座布団なら喜んで作ってくれると思うけど、数もぐっと増えるので、ここでもいろいろな報告を受けることになる。
After dinner, Machio took a shower in the men's bath. He was very relieved not to bathe with his wives and other girls. It was a dangerous thing for Machio every night.
極楽極楽。風呂上がりはまったりタイム。
Even Machio also felt very tense every night because he always felt the gazes of girls secretly hiding somewhere. Because of that, Machio often deceives them in any way, so they don't do weird things with Machio in bed. Their lust is too high. I'm sure you know what I mean when discussing bedtime activities with women.
あと、あの謎の隠し扉は塞いでもらおう。
The dwarves were also working diligently to make all kinds of wine. Then they also asked Machio to give them more wine ingredients again. The residents of Teju village are very fond of wine and must provide as much wine as possible. When Machio went to the vineyards to expand the field, Sena suddenly came and reported that a strange person had come to Teju village.
変な人だ。
It turns out that Rue knows this strange man. He is Valgrave, the first vampire race over 4,000 years old. He bowed in front of the god statue because he deeply recognized that God could also be called the god of creator. Valgrave is also commonly known as the vampire progenitor and the ancestor of all vampires. Valgrave has lived in this world for a very long time, so he used memory erasing magic to lighten the burden of life. But Valgrave would not use that magic to erase the memory of his family, the gods, and other important people. By the way, Rue and Flora are Valgrave's granddaughters. Valgrave came there because he got the news that Rue was heavily pregnant. This pregnancy is a very rare thing among the vampire race. The vampire race usually creates offspring from a blood contract, so Valgrave hoped that Rue could keep the child and give birth safely. Then Valgrave said that he really admired the statue of the god there. It was the best masterpiece Valgrave had ever seen. He really respected the gods, so he wanted the statue of the god. Then Machio immediately made another god statue for Valgrave.
気に入ったみたいね。そうですね。
いや、嬉しいな。ありがとう。
Valgrave was very happy because he could have this precious statue. Initially, he wanted to pay for Machio's services, but Machio refused because he didn't want to profit from making this statue of a god. Then Valgrave promised to give a reward to Machio next time. Valgrave was grateful that Rue and Flora could live in this comfortable village. Then Valgrave said goodbye to them and returned to the vampire race region.
彼女のことよろしく頼むよ。
はい。
村長、いろいろとありがとう。この象もルーのことも元気な子を産むんだよ。
はい。
フローラも元気でな。
はい。
じゃあ、俺は別のものを考えておくとしよう。
最初は驚いたけど、気さくな人だったな。
そうね。
Then Valgrave arrived at a church and greeted the priest there. Valgrave wanted this statue of a god to be put in a proper place. Even Valgrave also ordered the priest to put away the statue of the previous god and replace it with this new statue. Valgrave was the landlord there, so the priest immediately carried out his orders.
ああ、それでもだ。
おほう。
見てのお楽しみだ。一番いい場所を開けてくれ。
After the god statue had been placed perfectly, they were amazed because this god statue looked dashing. The priest guessed that the person who made this statue must be famous and talented. Then Valgrave said that the person who made this statue was an ordinary human, so they must repay this kindness by offering a prayer for the peace of Machio and the villagers of Teju.
敬意を払うようにと。
大丈夫ですか？
A few days later, Valgrave gave Machio a piano as his thanks. This piano is also to celebrate Rue's pregnancy. Then Machio and the others decided to put the piano in the inn's living room. The stupid girls didn't expect that there was a piano from the church placed in this place. The piano is usually seen and used when there are big rituals. The stupid girls want to play the piano immediately, but they didn't dare because if that special piano broke, they couldn't replace it.
私も後でいいから。だったら今のうちに弾かせてもらえば一生自慢できるってことじゃない？
A few minutes later.
壊したりしたらそれこそ一生終わりだわ。
I think I'm not going to call them stupid anymore. That title is only used by Frau and the people around them, so I'll just call them smart girls. The smart girls approached Machio because they wanted another piano. They pleaded tearfully to Machio to find a regular piano. Even if it's an old piano, it's no problem.
あのピアノじゃダメなのか？
ダメなんです。お願いします。ボロボロのでも構いませんから。
Because of that, Machio ordered a regular piano from Michael. After the regular piano arrived in Teju village, it was placed beside the special piano from Valgrave. Then the smart girls are very happy to play the regular piano every day. Even the other girls were curious about the piano. Then Frau and Lasti taught them to play the piano because only nobles or kingdom families could do it.
高価なものをもらってしまって申し訳なかったかな。
A few hours later.
やめてほしいな。
Spring has arrived, and the villagers of Teju are working as usual. Then lunchtime came, and Rue brought food for her beloved husband. Then they chatted and gave affection as usual. Machio is increasingly worried about Rue's body condition because soon it will be the time of their child's birth. Then Rue said that she was fine. Tia and the others always advise Rue to do her usual activities. They already have some experience with this pregnancy. Each race has a different percentage of pregnancies. Even though Machio continues to plant seeds in each girl, the chances of getting pregnant vary.
本当に不思議だ。お腹に子供がいるってどんな感覚なんだろう。
働きすぎると倒れちゃうわよ。
それは大丈夫なはず。さすが魔法。
だからこんなの処方だってば。
At night, Tia and the others were curious about the weight in Rue's stomach, whether it was a boy or a girl, etc. They are also jealous because Rue has a child now, but they were also grateful because this was the rarest moment for the vampire race. They are ready to help Rue in any way, so Rue doesn't have to hold back if she wants something. Then Rue says that she has one thing she can't do.
お酒が飲めないくらいかな。
Due to that, Maria, Tia, and the others reported this to Machio the next day. They want to sell wines elsewhere because Rue can't enjoy drinking wine with the villagers anymore. They feel bad because when there was a perfect moment to drink wine, Ru didn't drink it with them. Then Machio calmed them down and provided the best solution. Machio suggests stocking up on a few barrels of wine. Wine tastes better the longer it is stored. After Machio suggested that, Donovan and the others were saddened that it had been several days since the villagers not enjoyed wine. They feel useless working in this village. Of course, Machio immediately apologized to them and explained what was going on. Machio forgot to tell Donovan and the others a few days ago. Because of that, Donovan and the others would stockpile more wine in the cellar. A few days later, Machio visits Ru's room more often to check her condition. Soon, the girls and Machio's wives come to give Ru amulets, items, or whatever as a token of congratulations on Ru's pregnancy. Even the lizardmen are willing to be sucked by Ru to restore her stamina. But Ru couldn't do that because the lizardmen's scales were too hard. When Ru and Machio were chatting in the afternoon, Ru suddenly felt something strange in her stomach. Of course, Machio immediately asked the girls and his wives for help preparing for Ru's birth. As usual, sex scenes, pregnancy, childbirth, kissing, or whatever are always skipped because Farming Life in Another World series doesn't have the HE genre. So you guys don't expect to see Machio planting seeds in every girl. While everyone cares for Ru, Machio is very concerned for her safety. He waited for quite a while and fidgeted, thinking about Ru and the child in her stomach. Morning came, and finally, the labor process went smoothly. Ru survived and gave birth to a boy.
抱いてみて。
お、笑った。今笑ったよな。動いた。
動くわよ。です。まだ首が。しっかり腕で支えて。
おう、どうしたどうしたらいい？怖くないか？
A week passed. Machio and Ru agreed to name their first child Alfred. Alfred may be a half-vampire race. The girls and Machio's wives are pleased to see the adorable Alfred. Even their motherly instincts always show up to take care of Ru and Machio's children. Even so, they are still jealous because Ru already has a cute child like this. Then Machio gathered representatives of every race and kingdom to discuss something. Machio wants to run a currency system in Teju village, but this system is still in the testing phase, and Machio considers this currency as metals only. Machio will give this metal to every Teju villager. Then residents can use this metal as a medium of exchange for goods. The previous system was that if several people wanted an item, they had to ask Machio for permission first, then exchange something for the item they want. But sadly, Machio is having a hard time with it. Then there is another problem at the time of exchanging the item. Each person has a different price value for each item. For example, Tia wants to eat 1 apple by exchanging 1 strawberry. According to Tia, 1 strawberry is the equivalent price of 1 apple. While Sena wanted to eat 1 apple, she exchanged it for 3 strawberries. Even the Dragon Royal family could find it normal to exchange a lot of gold for a few barrels of wine. Then they agreed with Machio's suggestion, and Machio started making lots of metals to distribute to the residents. After a few days, the residents got used to the currency system. Some ordered wooden toys, chairs, and tables, then the metals were only displayed, or they bought furniture, swords, wine, etc. There was even the strangest order that Machio had gotten like this.
え、
その手があった。
ないぞ。
A few days or weeks later, Machio and the villagers throw a party to welcome the birth of Ru and Machio's child. They were pleased because they could drink wine as much as they wanted again. But Ru doesn't drink wine because she has to breastfeed Alfred. Maybe Machio will also join in. By the way, of all the girls and Machio's wives, Flora is the one who really wants to have a child like Ru.
もうお姉さんの子になりましょう。
いや待て。
いやー、酒うまい、飯うまい、よりめでたい。
In the Demon Kingdom, they are no longer worried about Teju village. Machio and the others are very nice and can work together on everything. Making friends in Teju village is the most profitable thing. They were grateful that Teju village was not an enemy of the Demon Kingdom. Even Blatt suggested marrying a member of the demon royal family to Machio. Of course, who else if not Yuri? Blatt really agreed to this marriage because Yuri also seemed to enjoy Teju Village's atmosphere. But Gargard doesn't want Yuri to marry Machio. He would feel lonely without Yuri by his side. On the other hand, Michael's trade is getting smoother due to his collaboration with Teju Village. Then days, weeks, months, or years passed, and the scene returned to episode 1, where Hiraku Machio woke up in the morning. Machio is grateful to live comfortably and peacefully in another world with his wives and the villagers of Teju. Then Tia and the others reported that many more people wanted to stay in Teju Village again, starting from residents in the Dragon Kingdom, neighboring forests, other kingdoms, etc. Machio also thought of building a wider area because the population was increasing. Of course, the girls and Machio's wives were very excited about Machio's idea. Producing offspring must be done, and Machio must be prepared for this population increase. By the way, most of the extra residents were girls, and their numbers were almost uncountable. I'm too lazy to count the total number of girls in Teju Village or the new residents that will come. I used the title 100 to 1,200 because I couldn't tell how many wives, girlfriends, and girls Machio had, either official or unofficial. Even many high elf races suddenly have children after I read hundreds of light novel chapters. Maybe it's unofficial because their motivation is only to make as many offspring as possible, and to have continuous sex with Machio. A lot of people don't believe me about this. They even think I'm just a small and trash channel, then clickbait to get many viewers. Now I challenge you to read hundreds of the light novel chapters, then count the number of wives, girlfriends, or girls who have had sex behind the scene and have children. I'm sure you guys won't be able to count them because there are too many. If you still don't want to read the light novel, I will tell you who the official and unofficial wives are. I have counted some girls from the light novel since the first episode of this anime was released. Pause this video so that you guys can read it carefully. The rest are the high elf race and other races not named by the author, so are their children. If you still don't believe what I wrote, just dislike this video, but don't forget to subscribe this channel.